Hey there, welcome back. Real quick video in terms of books I read that I wish I loved more. I wish I could give them 5 stars, but there was just something about them that just didn't click for me, and they just dropped the ball in some aspect. The first one's going to be I really can't give a book a full 5 stars if it feels like there was too much hand holding by the author. The author had to spell everything out because they didn't trust me, the reader, to figure things out for myself. First one on this list was going to be Grown. I loved this book, but they really did hammer in a little bit of all the red flags presented. They really kind of had to spell out their message a little bit. However, this is towards a more, not younger audience, but YA, which I do kind of allow for a little bit more hand-holding in terms of making sure no one's missing the themes and the characters. And, like, obviously this character is a bad guy. He's gone religious zealot on us. And it just kind of switched from a few red flags to insane levels of abuse really quickly. However, I'm not really going to fault that book for it. So I still end up giving it 5 stars. But in my head, I'm like, the author could have trusted me a little bit more to put these pieces together, but no, full 5 stars for that one, so I'm a little bit cheating on this list. Grown is about a singer, a very young singer who starts a relationship with her music producer. He's taking advantage of the situation, he's taking advantage of her, there's a lot of abuse involved, so many red flags. I loved that this young girl, who I believe is a teenager at the time, recognizes that there is abuse in the film and music industry in terms of age differences and power dynamics, but she's unable to pick this up herself when she falls into that kind of relationship. It was such a good book. You really should read it. It's really, really well done. Next, we have Night Swim. While this one didn't have quite the same type of hand-holding, it felt too, I think easy's the wrong word, but basically this woman has a podcast and she's covering a rape trial. And things start off like it could be interpreted as what is consent. Should you automatically believe the woman who's making the accusations, or whoever is making the accusations? It could be either gender, but in this story it's a woman. Answer, yeah, obvious opinion, like, yes, believe them until proven otherwise. Always believe them, whoever's doing the outcry. But they could have went in a direction of what is consent, and I feel that's a little bit more nuanced. Like, the male character thought that because the female character didn't say no and wasn't resisting, then that was consent. Whereas the female character could have thought, like, the lack of verbal yes should have been implied as a withdrawal of consent, wanting to stop. You should make sure your partner is, like, actively enjoying being together and just enjoying it the entire time. Like, consent is could have been a little bit more nuanced in that sense. And I feel that would have been a good message to teach, to make sure each member and partner is enjoying themselves and want to continue. Compared to the partner is screaming at you to stop and trying to push you away, and you have to hold them down, and it's very violent. That is very clearly sexual assault. So the opportunity was there to make it a little more nuanced. And then the very clear assault could have been handled in a past storyline, which it is. I think I still gave this like 4.5 stars, and the only reason I took away like half a star was because of more plot conveniences, because I'm not going to take away a star rating just because, like, I would have preferred the author done this. Obviously, the author can write and tell whatever story they want, and this really was an amazing book. The podcast element was so well done. The characters were so well done. I just feel like it had the opportunity to do something a little more different, but it kind of stuck to the safe, tried and true route of a story. Same thing for They Never Learn. I really, really enjoyed this book. It was very fast-paced. It was great. I love the characters. This is pretty much a serial killer on campus who is murdering people who they feel deserve it and who's taking advantage of it and abusing other students or people on the campus. And it's very well done. However, of course, every single male character, save the non-straight ones, are horrible people and not to be trusted. And there is a villainous monologue at the end that not only does like a villainous monologue for why they were doing all this to begin with, but also recapping all the little clues that, as a reader, most of them I picked up on as I was reading it, but now it's being rehashed back to me as if I missed it. Like, don't forget how smart I am as an author to include all these little foreshadowing moments. I'm going to make sure that you pick up on them and I tell you about them so you don't miss them. Just that kind of, like, you didn't need that villainous monologue. You can trust that I picked up on the clues and it makes sense why this character is the villain. Again, I still really enjoyed this book. 4.5 stars. I loved it. And sometimes you really do need the message of, like, women are not objects, treat them well, bashed over your head. Sometimes you need a book that outright comes out and just says that to you. That doesn't need to be subtle. I didn't need it to be subtle. It was the villainous monologue that got me. I don't enjoy villainous monologues. Okay, don't come at me for this book. I'm sorry. It's a great book. It is beautiful. It is poetry in book novel form. It was very, very well written. Beautiful. The characters are great. The magic systems are great. It is most beloved story. Just hear me out. The Name of the Wind. I still enjoyed this book. There's a me thing going on. I don't like a school setting. I don't know what it is. I spent too long in school. I just graduated. So to start off, I don't like a school setting that's a me thing. The other thing, I'm not a biggest fan of characters who everything comes easy to them. They're geniuses. They pick up on everything so much faster than anyone else. They don't really have to work for what they get. And aside from the main character being very poor and having just lost his family, so got no one to rely on, just everything comes so easy to him. He's brilliant. It's great. Again, I can still enjoy that type of character. However, there was also not much to the side characters yet. I know hopefully they develop more in the second book. Main issue is I found the plot to kind of meander. I think this kind of goes hand in hand with the school setting. You're going to your classes, you're going to your job to make some money, you're just going back and forth. Like, the plot is there. We have the big bad that caused the hero's life to turn off on another direction, and we need to do more research about this big bad. We need to figure out who they are, what their weaknesses is, all that kind of information. And all the information we need is in the library. So I would have loved for this character to be doing more research on the world, more research on who these big bads are, weaknesses, magic, all that. I would have loved it. He gets banned from the library. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? So the entire book continues to meander around these plot points. I'm like, can we sneak into the library? Can we go do something over just so I can get back to the main plot instead of just meandering around? I will say, though, the present-day storyline of this book is my favorite thing in the world. Like, I loved, like, the current present timeline compared to the stuff that happened in the past when he was at school. That present-day stuff. Oh, I loved those scenes so much. Okay, books that dropped the ball. I was enjoying myself until the ending. Starting off with The Boogeyman. This is a fictional story written to be like a true crime novel, including like photos, crime scene photos incorporated into the story, and the author incorporating himself into the story. It was a unique aspect. I really enjoyed it. However, like, by the end, nothing really happens. Like, this isn't a nonfiction book. You could make yourself, as the main character, be more important instead of kind of being a bystander and just narrating back things that have happened during this crime. Like, I don't understand why the main character didn't end up being more important or involved in some way or investigating in some way other than just reading and listening to the news and occasionally talking to the detectives, but not really being involved in the investigation or doing his own investigation in any way. And then there was some talk of some supernatural elements, but that was never really followed up on. Yeah, this one kind of just dropped the ball by the ending. I think it could have been my thing. It's still a very good book. I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of other people enjoyed it. Just for my personal taste, which all these books on the list is just how they could have fit to my personal taste, would have worked better. However, obviously, my personal taste is not the author's taste or other readers' taste. Keep that in mind as I go through all these books. Next is going to be the plot. This comes back again to a villainous monologue. I mean, why are we doing so many villainous monologues? I don't like villainous monologues. Basically, author wrote a book. He heard the plot about the book he wrote from someone else. Said person who told him the plot of the story has died. So Buddy wrote a book, and now he's being blackmailed saying, hey, you didn't write this book. It's not yours, even though he wrote every single word. It's just the plot itself was not his creation. The book goes so far as to say you can't copyright a plot idea, so nothing he did is wrong. So I guess maybe it can just be argued that the book was written in bad faith and ruined his public image. However, now, is this a spoiler? We're too close to what is a spoiler, so I'm going to put a timestamp here to the end of the video where I will have some more comments on this book. It's skipping the spoiler stuff. Basically, it just didn't make sense to me. The plot of this book, called The Plot, did not make sense to me for character motivations, and I can't tell you why without getting into spoilers, so feel free to watch the end of this video to get that. Next, we have Local Woman Missing. This book was my favorite thing of all times. Best thriller ever. Was kicking the Kindworth killing off the top of my favorite thrillers list until the ending. Up to the 75% point, I loved this book. Social commentary, jumping in timelines, multiple POVs, intense opening chapter, very intense. I love the characters. I love where we're going. It was so fast-paced, I could not stop reading. I read this entire, 75% of it in one sitting. I could not stop. I was hooked. Basically, 3 women have gone missing, 2 adults and a child. One has since returned and it's been recovered, and they're trying to figure out if there was a connection between them and where the other missing person is. Is told from shortly before the kidnapping, just after, and then 10, 11 years later. I loved this book so much. The ending dropped the ball so hard. All the build-up, everything I loved about this book was just pushed aside, turned to plot conveniences, red herrings. I was so, so sad because it was so good, and then just everything I loved about this book was deemed not important. The ending, I've learned predictable is the wrong way to call it because I didn't guess what had happened. More so, as soon as it was presented, it was too simple. Everything was wrapped up too neatly, and a couple characters had to change their entire personality just to fit this simple explanation, when it could have been something more. There could have been something more intense, more dramatic. So many other things could have been done rather than just brushing aside all the build-ups to go this route. Wasn't for me. I'm sure many people loved this ending and loved this book. I just wish something different had been done with the ending. I was so close to just calling this a 1-star book because of how much I need a good ending, and that ending just dropped the ball for me. Which leads us back to a book that I still need to change my Goodreads rating for. Like I said, Local Woman Missing, I gave it a 4-star out of respect for the beginning of this book, because it was only the last 25% that I disliked, 1 star of that. So 5-star to 1 star, I gave it a 4-star total. Every Vow You Break, I should have done the same thing for. This book is a woman going on her honeymoon, and there's just something wrong. First of all, the man she cheated on her husband with is there. and then just there's so much tension and suspense and build up, and it's like Alfred Hitchcock, you know a bomb's under the table about to blow. The slow winding terror, you're just waiting for that shoe to drop. You don't know what's going on, and then you're waiting. You're just the suspense. The suspense is so real in the opening of this book. And then the ending switches tone so abruptly, and I can't believe what happens. It's like the twist was there was no twist. It's what you expect. And then it, again, a tonal shift. That I'm just like, Peter Swanson, you're an instant buy author from me. I have given every book you have ever written 5 stars. Like an easy 5 stars. I binge your books in a day because I can't stop. How did you let me down so much with this ending? Because, again, I've never read a Peter Swanson book where I didn't either want to binge the entire thing in one sitting, or I did binge the entire thing in one sitting. He wrote my favorite thriller of all times, The Kind Worth Killing. So because the author I didn't connect with this one book from him, I end up giving him 1 star, and that's unfair. That's rude. It's not nice. It is not deserved. I should give it like a 3 or 4 at least, but just for my personal enjoyment from an author I have loved so many of his books for, the fact that endings are so important to me, I gave it 1 star, and that's just not nice. So I should go back on Goodreads and raise that to at least a 3. But yeah. Okay, rounding back to the plot. I will be discussing spoilers. This is your spoiler warning. So, what happens in the plot? I am going to tell you what the plot of the book in the plot involves. So, the plot of a story that the main character wrote his novel about, that another character had told him about, is simply that a child was killed when she was attempting to go to university. And it's kind of set up like an accident, and the mother ends up taking the daughter's place in university because the mother was a teen mother, had her too young, didn't get to experience her own dreams, goals, and didn't get to leave the small town. So she's like, oh, well, my daughter's dead. I can't bring her back. I'm going to take her place in college. I'm going to go live my own life, make my own dreams come true. So it's then kind of revealed in the book that this is probably based on true events, and the mother who in the story must be actually real and is blackmailing the author because she doesn't want this story out there. Do you see the issue? He didn't know this book was real, or this story was based on true events. No one knew this was based on true events. She's more or less admitting to a murder and thinks that he's not going to say anything because she's accusing him of plagiarism, which he can't even be charged for because it's not a plagiarized story. I don't understand the motivations. Like, okay, yeah, everyone's talking about this book and dragging up your old past history and you don't want to hear about it. Eventually they're going to find out something, or find something else to talk about, and they're going to move on from this book. Granted, it's being made into a movie. Okay, fine. Don't watch the movie. Don't tell people you haven't seen it yet and you don't want the story ruined for it, so no one will talk to you about it. Don't blackmail someone and essentially admit that you're a murderer. You'll go to jail for that. That's a bad idea. And then you have the final twist which you see coming a mile away. It's not subtle. Yeah, the motivation for why this story was happening did not make sense to me. I don't understand it. That's all I got. Okay. Have a happy holidays. I'll see you later. Bye.